Level up with the new AAA Commanders MVP membership. Get all the benefits of AAA plus exclusive experiences, discounts, and tickets. Already a AAA member? Upgrade for free or join today at AAA.com/Commanders. Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media. That's Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I'll have a story up in a day or two about Dan Quinn after taking over the defense, kind of the impact and why things have looked better. Whether or not statistically they're that much better, things have looked better for a variety of reasons. But I'll get into all that on ESPN.com. Also, for you club members, you gold members will be doing the private Zoom on Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern time. Join me there. And then for all the rest of the club members, doing the private chat 3 hours before kickoff Sunday from Minneapolis. So join me there. All right, today I'm joined by the Washington Post, Tom Schad, new beat reporter for the Post. So he's been on the beat since August. So I wanted to get his impressions. Listen, Tom used to be out at Redskin Park back in the day when they were still the Redskins, but he was working for a couple different papers, Washington Times, USA Today. Now he's with the Post, so I wanted to get his thoughts on what he's seen so far and just his impressions of what's happened here, the atmosphere compared to when he was here the last time, and he'll get into all that. And then just like playing the young players versus the vets, some topics that are germane to what's going on with the Commanders right now. So stay tuned for that. There's not a whole lot to go over before then because, the only update really is on Jaden Daniels. And all we know for him is he was limited in practice again and that they really won't know until Friday what his deal is for Sunday. There's a lot of things they want to see, the functional quarterback movement, just how he protects himself, how he hands off, when he's running, etc. So all that stuff is what they want to see. That's why we won't know a whole lot. Now, Noah Brown, there was optimism in him, and I know what everybody's saying. But he's still on this roster, folks. So Dan Quinn said he was optimistic about him, but when he said that, he kind of rapped on the table because I think they've been at the doorstep before with him coming back, and it hasn't worked. But he was out there today. Was a full participant in practice, still on injured reserve. And so, we'll know more about that whether tomorrow or Friday for sure. So, but he's inching close to his return. And we did talk to Terry McLaurin about him, and I'll probably play some of that on Friday in my 5 thoughts. So anyways, folks, not a whole lot more that I need to go through. So here's my conversation with the Washington Post, Tom Schad. Hail Nation, take your fandom up a notch. Check out the new AAA Commanders MVP membership. You'll get all the reliable AAA benefits like 24/7 roadside assistance, plus exciting Hail Nation extras like opportunities to win game tickets, attend exclusive events, and 15% off the online pro shop. Already a AAA member? No problem. You can upgrade for free. Head to AAA.com/Commanders to upgrade or join today and become a true Commanders MVP and Hail Nation member. Okay, so I'm with Tom Schad, new beat reporter for the Washington Post. This is not Between Two Ferns. I'm not Zach Galifianakis.
You should call it Between Two Ferns.
It might be better, but you can see this great decoration behind us in the press room. It looks better than, if you go the other way, it looks more like a hostage room.
Yeah.
And I've done that before. So first of all, I want to get into a couple of topics, but this is your first year. I know you covered this team before. You're out here before. But I'm curious, like first year back here in a while, what has been your take for you? It was August since you've been here, right?
Yeah. So I started, my first day was the first day that Terry came back and had his press conference after signing the new contract. It was like right before the start of the season. Yeah, I mean, I think my comparison is always the last time I covered the team, which was 2014, the first year of Gruden. Things got pretty bad. That was kind of where the RG3 era was starting to unravel. The culture just feels so much different. And I think that's I wrote about it a couple weeks ago. I mean, it's an intangible thing. You can't really grasp it, but the culture does feel just different to me anyways, as a reporter witnessing it with this season where they're 3-9 as opposed to that season where they were 4 and whatever.
And I was going to say too, because like when you're around them, I don't feel like I'm covering a 3-9 team necessarily. When you watch them, you can get it, right? But when you're around in the locker room, and I've been in there and you've been here, you were here during some tough times too. So having been there, it doesn't feel like that to me. Does it to you?
No, not at all. And I mean, this is not to just hawk all the stuff I've been writing recently, but they are ostensibly 3 plays away from a 500 record. And I'm not trying to make excuses for them. Like in the losses, they have been terrible, right? But like if a couple things, go differently, whether it's the 2-point conversion or Matt Gay not missing a field goal or the fumble at the Chicago game, they're competing for a playoff spot right now, even with all the injuries that they've dealt with, right? So I think I think there's a recognition basically in the locker room that they don't think probably that they're the 3-9 team that they are on paper, and I think there is a little bit of validity to that. I guess
There is, and the other funny thing is, I know there's still 5 weeks left, so sometimes you see this stuff more in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
But when you're in the locker room, like guys are in there. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes there have been times in the past, like a couple years ago, like you get in there, like there's nobody in there, or there are very few guys in there that you actually need to talk to because guys don't want to be in there. And that again, like that to me is part of what, as you talk about the culture, like that is something that's a little bit different. Like what that means for the future, I don't know, but I know that's what it is now.
Yeah. And that's what was interesting. Like, I think if you were watching Hard Knocks last
I was
night,
going to get to that.
there we go. I'm helping you with the
Yep,
transition.
this is exactly there we go.
I mean, if you were to watch like kind of that scene with Tavita leaving
exactly what I was
the celebration, yeah. I mean, it's like I think from an outsider's point of view, you would think that they're 3-9, everything's kind of the sky is falling, and scenes like that give a little glimpse into I think kind of the same sort of vibe that we see at times when we're talking to guys.
And that's what I was going to talk about because I was talking to one of the players. Like you wouldn't know based on the reaction. I know like their point is like it's just what he meant to them, but you still see this enthusiasm from a team that is 3-9. Like if you turn on, you would have thought this was last year where they have like everything's going right for them and they're just so pumped up, whatever, and they're very happy for this guy. And maybe I should just look at it as like, well, if they were 3-9, like, or if they were 9-3, would they act any different? But the answer is no. But I think that does speak to what they still have here beyond the record, beyond the injuries, et cetera.
And it is, again, I get like some fans have said that it's kind of like a hokey kind of thing and that you are what your record says you are, everything. But I mean, Quinn said something, I guess it was a couple weeks ago, about being a performance issue, not a culture issue. And I think that those are kind of different things. And they overlap a lot, right? Like winning cultures are often really healthy and or winning teams often really have healthy cultures and vice versa. But I do think that they're not necessarily overlapped in every case. That makes sense.
Right. It does. And like you can look at the Eagles, they have their issues. They always seem to have their issues, which were not exposed on Hard Knocks, but they always seem to win because they do have guys who are really good and they know how to thrive within the chaos. But I know here, like I do think like that stuff can transfer from one season to the next, and is why I think guys are still playing a certain way and why they want to finish a certain way. We've got whatever that means. But I think you see that. And the other one too, that from that scene, and I was asking you thought that really the only two scenes to me that stood out were the Tavita one and then Quinn talking after the game about like, we lost, but we're not lost. And Bram and I, we do the live stream show on Tuesdays, and we were talking about an element of that before the show, which was like, people were asking what was it like in the locker room, and it almost felt like that they were upset about the loss, but there was a feeling like they're closer to what they thought they would be.
Yeah, I thought that. I mean, that locker room scene to me was the biggest. Commanders related. I loved the turkey scene with the Cowboys.
That was pretty good.
I mean, that has nothing to do with.
That was pretty good.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, Commander specific. Yeah, it was for me. It was that scene, and it was this idea of them having been quote unquote lost, which I think we hadn't gotten from Dan Quinn in the same kind of way. Like the words that he would use would be like, we're not meeting the standard and stuff like that.
They're not in that space. They're not getting down that space.
Yeah, but to hear him say like or kind of infer that they were lost, aren't anymore, I thought was super interesting. And I got the same vibe in the locker room that you guys were talking about, that like again, there's not like a sky is falling sort of thing, even though the goals that they'd set out for this season are not really in reach anymore.
Hey, Commanders fans, want to make every drive a winning one? With the AAA Commanders MVP membership, you'll get trusted AAA roadside assistance, score Commanders gear with 15% off at the online pro shop, ticket giveaways, and exclusive team experiences. Whether it's game day or a weekend getaway, AAA keeps Commanders fans covered at home or on the road. Upgrade your current membership or join the team today at AAA.com/Commanders and drive like an MVP every day. And he also talked about, I want to get your opinion because I espouse mine too much, but like young guys versus vets, playing young guys versus vets. Like, what have you thought about his philosophy there?
I I don't know. I mean, I think the answer that he's always given of like you have to do both, I think it's true to a certain extent, but I think it's like a percentages basis where
Right.
like sometimes the way that it comes across is like we need to do both 50%. We need to
Right.
like, focus on them equally. I don't think that's necessarily true or the best way to handle it. And I think like as the season goes along, you'll start to see a little bit more of that. I would assume shift towards like younger guys. I think you have to have some of the veteran guys like Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz. Like you need to have some of those leaders out there all the time. But a great example was like Sunday night. You saw the International Pathways player
Right. Right.
TJ.
Good luck.
Yeah, Magura Younga, I think.
Magura Yanga. Yeah, I believe that's
Magura
right.
Younga,
It's just like it's spelled.
just like it's spelled. You saw him get some snaps
Yeah.
at the expense of Preston Smith.
Mhm.
And like, Preston Smith has filled his role and was
Mhm.
signed off the street, but that's like a good example to me of something I think that you'll see more and more as the season goes
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see like guys like Johnny Newton. Does he get not like he's not going to supplant Duran or Javon? Like Duran may still factor here in the future. I don't know. So there's no reason to not play him. But you may do you see him being used a little bit differently or maybe a little bit more snaps here or there? And same thing with Jordan. And but they have been playing a lot. Like they do know, I think they have a good idea what they can do. Is there any other young guy that maybe you'd like to see that you have in mind? Like, I'd like to see this guy, what they could do.
I don't know. I mean, the linebacker spot has always really intrigued me,
Mm,
um, just because Bobby is getting up there, and that's one where like they've also appeared to, and this was before I started on the beat, but they appeared to be trying to address that with
right.
like Kane Madrano and then Ali Cajo, obviously like being the undrafted guy who stuck around. Like, I don't think either of those guys have gotten a defensive snap yet, unless I'm mistaken.
No,
If they have,
special
it's been
teams.
yeah, it's yeah. So, I mean, that would be an interesting one. And then just seeing Jordan McGee kind of out there, which is hard because I don't think you're going to see Bobby off the field, but seeing him out there in the middle of the defense
Right.
by himself, I think would be interesting.
That's the one to me that I'd be curious to see. And I think it's good for him to play alongside Bobby right now to learn and see how Bobby handles the huddle, how this guy does that. Like that's part of the training. That's part of the development too, is to be out there with him doing that. But I would be curious to see, would they ever do that? Like, because they're trying to use a lot of three linebacker sets, um, for a variety of reasons, but like, could you get into that situation? And that's the one that I'd be curious because I think he could be that heir apparent, right? That to Bobby, and you wouldn't mind getting it. Wouldn't be bad to see him in that role, even for a game.
Yeah, and that's I think where you get it, like the same sort of thing kind of with Ben Sinnott, where like I know a lot of fans have wanted to see Ben Sinnott in like a larger role or get some more opportunities. Those are just so tricky because of what I guess Ertz and Wagner in
Right,
particular like
right,
mean from a leadership
exactly.
standpoint. So that's going to be interesting to me, and it gets back to those percentages, right? Of like at what point do you flip something if you're Dan Quinn and roll Ben Sinnott out there, Colson Yankoff out there, and give them like a little
And
bit more.
and I think even with Ben, like he can still do stuff with Zach on the field.
Right, right.
That's the thing that would be the question I have is why isn't he? And you know what I mean? So like it's not, I don't always say like give him more opportunities. Like, is he earning more in their eyes? Because and he's had a couple of years where he's gotten a lot of good reps. But, and I think because like what he does is different than Zach, but there are still times, could you do more? Could you find ways to get him the ball a little bit more just because? But on the other hand, like what if Yankoff is a guy that you want to get more reps to, because like he's a pretty athletic guy and you get him in space and he can run a little bit.
Yeah, we did see what Yankoff with one or two
Yeah,
catches, John Bates with a
yeah,
couple catches, which that's another. I mean, this is neither here nor there, but getting John Bates more involved as a passing threat where he's not just like the run blocker and you at least want to have that threat of him going out and catching a
I
pass.
will say, I think John Bates is the guy that every summer they're going to say, we got to get him the ball more. At the end of the year, he'll have the same amount of catches because like he's a blocker and they're
Yeah.
going to have other guys like, well, we could throw it to him, but we got this guy and this guy too. So, but that's just
Okay.
my take on it. But it is like he has good hands. It's not that he has bad hands or anything, it's just that, but like I am with you, like I'd be curious to see because like with Sinnott, are there roles that they have for him, like as a pass catcher, that are different than Zach, that they could get him the ball in those kind of situations to see how does he look in the situations that maybe fit him best, whether he succeeds or not. Some play action stuff, bootlegs, whatever. Like just you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
that would be the one too. And then I don't know, like with Krosky Merritt, would you like to see him get some more and just to see because his snaps have kind of gone down. That's
Yeah, I mean that's a really tricky one. Yeah, because it's kind of like him versus Chris at this point in terms of the different skill sets that they
mhm.
provide. Um, yeah, Bill just, I don't know. I mean, relative to what we saw earlier in the season, he's just looked like a different player in some ways. He just hasn't broken that big one, and part of
Mm.
me thinks that if he gets one of those, maybe he'll come into some more snaps. And I mean, Cliff has said that he's on the right track and he's doing all the things he needs to do, whatever. But yeah, that would be an interesting one. That's one of those guys where it's like, I think you feel pretty confident that they're going to have a role next year. It's just what is that
Right,
role?
right.
And you could say the same for like a Jalen Lane or like Mikey Sanders
Yeah.
still. It's like just, the last couple games of the season, just trying to figure out where they're going to fit in and kind of get a better sense going into
And
next year.
what defensively, we'll stick there for a minute with
Yeah.
Mikey and with that whole group, but with Dan Quinn taking over as a play caller, what things have jumped out to you in the last couple of weeks?
The biggest thing, honestly, for me is just like the lack of predictability.
Hmm.
And I mean, I'm not as much of a I don't want to say like film nerd as you are, but like,
Maybe I'll get a T-shirt.
yeah. But no, I mean, it's just like it seems like you can't really bet on what they're going to do in the same way that you could with Joe Witt, and it stands out on individual plays like the Jonathan Jones sack. What was that 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago?
yeah,
Coming off
yeah,
the edge,
yep,
like just like putting things on tape too, to where like future opponents have to consider that you might bring a corner
right.
blitz or whatever. Like, just very, very kind of straightforward. I just think it's the lack of predictability. I mean, a lot of this stuff, like I know they're playing more zone as opposed to man, and it helps getting like some of the personnel back, like getting a guy like Will Harris back. Like I think a lot of the changes kind of are just uh I don't know, just getting guys back more so than like Dan doing anything super different. But it is like it's less predictable to me
And,
as I watch
and
it.
it's funny because like you talk to players, and I think part of it too is Joe Witt's still on the staff.
Right.
They don't want to say things, and I don't even know what they would, but they're very sensitive to like the guy is still here. I'm not going to sit there and say X, Y, or Z, but because the line is usually we're just making more plays, So and I don't know, like, do you feel like there's been a grand improvement or just a good improvement?
I think there's been a good
Okay.
improvement. I think it's so hard to evaluate because the offenses that they were playing at the tail end of that Joe
Mm.
Witt stretch were so much better, in my opinion, than
Yeah,
Miami and Denver.
yeah,
And you're not really going to get a better picture of it this weekend or next weekend, right?
right,
Like it's really going
right,
to come down to like the Philly games and the
right,
Cowboys game to get a good sense of it. So there's definitely been improvement. Like I don't think anybody can argue that
right.
there hasn't been an
Okay.
improvement, but I do think part of it is the opponent, I guess, and just playing better and getting guys like Will Harris
I
back.
thought it was interesting that Quinn said that he would consider taking over.
Yeah.
And that's because maybe he's in a better spot in the program to do that. Last thing then with Jaden, because that's obviously a big topic, and we don't know. We're not going to know till Friday.
Yeah.
But what is your take on him coming back, and what is it? Well, first of all, what's your take on him possibly? Well, at some point he's coming back.
Yeah. Do I think he should come back or what
Yeah,
do I?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think he should come back. I don't think that was ever a question really outside of like fan
Outside of it,
circles
yeah.
and I actually weird connection. I was an intern for the Washington Times when they shut down Steven Strasburg, and I was at the park because our
Oh,
writer was off, and so I covered that, and that was like a big thing, and I think there's some part of that has kind of like trickled into a fan psyche to a certain extent of like this idea of like shutting somebody down. I don't really think that's a thing. I mean,
yeah,
especially in football where you only get, and this is like what everybody will tell you, you only get 17
yeah,
games. Every game is so important, especially for a guy like Jaden. Like every rep is so important for him
yeah.
as he continues to grow. And I think that's kind of gotten lost because he had such a great year last year. He's still just in his second year. He still has a lot of growth and development that he has to go through. And so if you can get 4 or 5 games towards that, I think you definitely do it. And in terms of like whether he will play, I also think like the functional movement that Dan Quinn has been talking about, um, like that's something that they probably have a pretty good idea of
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
this
You would
point.
think.
Like the whole cleared for contact thing, like you're not taking hits in practice.
Right.
So it's literally just like, does he feel like he can, if he gets tackled, put his left arm out, probably in a brace, and not re-dislocate it? And as long as the doctors feel like he's not at risk of re-dislocating
Right.
it, I think he's gonna be fine to go.
Yeah. So you're, well, we don't know yet for Sunday.
We
So I
don't.
wouldn't put that, but yeah, but because I agree, like it's the stiff arming, like you're going to see some of that. You can know already, like, how's it feel when he's running, et cetera. There, you watch him do handoffs. Like that's another part of the equation. And now he's not under center very often, but you do see it in practice. And I saw, you see him handing the ball off with his left hand. So, those are some of the other things too. Last thing then with him, is there anything in particular you'd like to see from him in the offense down the stretch?
I mean, starting when I did, I don't really feel like outside of maybe the Chargers game,
Mm,
I've seen the offense that I watched on TV last
you
year.
haven't. Yeah, I can tell
So I mean,
you haven't.
and it's, yeah, and I was talking with my beat partner Tashawn Reed, and I were talking about like he hasn't really seen a ton of Terry because when he
Yeah,
started, like
yeah,
Terry's been out. Noah's
yeah,
been out the entire time
yeah.
that he's been here. So um yeah, I think like if you're a fan, you just want to see like glimpses of last year, and you want to see evidence that last year wasn't a fluke, I
Right.
guess. Whatever that looks like against whatever team you're playing, like you just want to see glimpses. And I think you want to see from Jaden specifically a concerted effort to like not put himself in harm's way, which he does not do tons. But I think you've seen this year on the plays when he got hurt. It's a little bit of scrambling, trying to put the team on his back, that sort of thing. He hasn't
Down
done
31.
anything. Yeah, he hasn't done.
That's the competitor mindset. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And it's not like he's done anything outrageous like when he got hurt against the Packers, for example. It wasn't like he was doing anything crazy. Um, but I think like that, again, if you're a fan, you want to see kind of a play where he's scrambling out and he just throws the ball out of bounds, stuff like that, kind of a recognition of what the situation
And
is.
right, down and distance situation, like if
Yeah,
it's third and 7 in the first quarter versus 3rd and 7 in the fourth quarter, and you got to have it.
right.
Like those got to have, as Dan, those got to have it moments, right? Like that's when they want him to do whatever it takes. And so we'll see. Tom, tell people where they can follow you, et cetera.
Subscribe to the Washington Post, first of all, and then you can follow me on Twitter at Tom_Shad, on Blue Sky at Tom Schad Blue Sky or something. You're not on Blue Sky, are you?
No, I went on there. There was one time during free agency because Twitter was down. And I
Oh,
went over
that's
there. I
right.
went over there like just to sign up, and like I'll be honest, like I forgot that I was even on there. So I haven't posted anything on there in months and months.
I'm pretty sure it's me and Ben Standig and
Yeah.
Tashawn, I think, are the only
Okay.
Commanders. But yeah, but if you're on Blue Sky, I mean,
There you go.
we're there.
All right.
So,
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate
yeah,
it.
thanks for having me.
All right. That's it for this episode. Thanks, Tom, for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back on Friday afternoon on the podcast, Saturday morning on YouTube with my 5 thoughts leading into the Commanders game against the Vikings. A lot of things that do not pertain to the Vikings game, but definitely pertains to the Commanders. So tune in for that. So appreciate you tuning in. Talk to you next time.